Joining us now to discuss the crisis at America's southern border is the New York Post Texas reporter, Jennie Taer. Jennie, welcome to the program. We have seen in the last few hours shocking vision of the National Guard in Texas being overrun by migrants rioting to cross the border. Let's have a look at this footage. Jennie, tell us what happened here. This is absolutely shocking. It appears that American authorities are now being overwhelmed by these forces of migrants that are pouring across the border. What happened after this? What's been the reaction? I know Joe Biden's been in the area, I think. Has he had anything to say?
The president has been in Texas, but he has not said anything about this situation. Of course, we know he went to the border recently. But what evolved here is you had a group of about 600 migrants separated by women and children and single adults. The single adults were being moved back to Mexico by Texas authorities, by the National Guard here. And I think what happened was they realized that they were being pushed back. They weren't going to be processed and released as promised by the cartels and human smugglers. And so they decided that rioting would be the best course of action here. They quickly began to encircle National Guard to break through Abbott's border wire, to get all the way up to the gate that Border Patrol typically opens for these large groups to try to get in. And of course, in totally outnumbering National Guard that was here. I mean, it was probably about 200 to 300 single adults that encircled just a few members of the National Guard. This is something that border agents say is their worst fear.
This, Jennie, looks like absolute chaos here. We're just looking again at the vision there. Tell me, this has real potential for tragedy one way or the other, doesn't it?
This is a really, scary situation for the community, for the National Guard here, for the state authorities, for Border Patrol, the federal authorities. I think that this is something that is beginning to boil over in El Paso, is we're seeing not only big groups causing riots, but we also saw in the last couple of weeks and in the last couple of years, people that are being released who have criminal histories, who are gang affiliated, who are on the terror watch list. Just a few days ago here, a man who said he was a Hezbollah terrorist was apprehended here and said to health personnel in Border Patrol custody that he was here to make a bomb. That's just one story that we're hearing about. Another story we know about is Jose Ibarra. He came across the border here as well. He's the alleged murderer of Laken Riley.
And I mean, these stories, this story about Laken Riley, of course, made huge national headlines around the world because it got brought up at the State of the Union. But there are cases every single day, tragedies of crimes, terrible crimes being committed by people who crossed illegally and should not be in the country. You got the story about the man who said that he was part of Hezbollah and wanted to make a bomb. At this point, it seems to me like what's happening at the border is not so much about a peaceful group of migrants trying to come through, although some are. But, the word I'm hearing from an awful lot of people on the right is saying this is looking more and more like an invasion than it is a peaceful movement of migrants.
I can tell you I've been covering this for several years now, and there's definitely been a shift in the makeup of people crossing the border. We also reported today that there are people roaming the streets of El Paso with gang tattoos that came from Venezuela. This is the reality. Of course, you do have people, you have the women and children, you have people who are here that are trying to make a case for asylum, but also mixed in with those groups, you have some bad actors, and we're seeing more and more of that.
And what is the reaction? What is the feeling of the Border Patrol agents that you speak to? I mean, are they feeling like they are supported at all by this administration, or are they just feeling like they are being left in what looks like increasingly more and more dangerous situations?
The Border Patrol agents that I talk to are absolutely devastated by this. It has taken a huge toll on not only their morale at work, but in their entire life. It affects their family life. It affects their ability to just do normal things, to sleep without having nightmares, to be able to have normal conversations and be part of normal life, have birthday parties for the kids without thinking about these things. That's the reality. And they go to work every day and they feel complicit in human smuggling. And that's what they tell me. They tell me that they feel like this administration does not have their back. And in a situation like a riot happening, they would be terrified because they especially feel like the president and people in Washington that are in charge of their agency will not support them.